here's what they said about how it impacted their sexual desire. 75% of the women reported that the mental load drastically reduces their desire for sex. Feels like I'm mothering my husband, not just my children. I'm resentful. Welcome to the Weaponized Marriage Podcast. I'm your host, Kendra Hewitt.
And I'm Ryan Hewitt.
And today's topic is one that it was super organic when we talked about it earlier, like when we were planning what we're going to talk about. But I was telling Ryan that it's been one that's been on my mind for a while, but I thought he would think is really silly and kind of boring and people wouldn't want to listen to it. And then, and it's on what I call invisible labor. And I feel like this is super appropriate because today was the first day of school for my daughter, Lily. And it's a lot of people's first week of school, whatever day it is. And it just was like one of those reminders of all of those mental things you carry that you don't really count as stuff you have to do, that just takes time, that takes up mostly that's what mental load is. Mind share, and it's taking up real estate of your energy and your focus and your presence in not only in your own life, but in the lives of the people that you love. So I was telling him about how on the way home from our lake house the other day, I got the opportunity to listen to a podcast. And I'm one of those people that like I press play on some of my favorite podcasts. I listen to the most recent episode and I let whatever the topic be, like it I take it as a sign that this is what I was supposed to hear today. So anyways, so I started listening and it's a business podcast, but they had a woman on. I did not know what kind of doctor she was. Her name is Dr. Morgan Cutlip. And turns out that she was a relationship expert and she shared her story about how her and her husband are both entrepreneurs, which we could relate to. And she introed the podcast with talking about this Venn diagram. And if you know what a Venn diagram is, it's like three circles and they all intersect at one point. And she talked about mental load being like kind of the center of the Venn diagram, and that there's three components of this mental load. And the first one is like your personal stuff, like the personal things that you need to do, take care of, like your personal health, your personal hygiene, your personal career, like the things that make up your identity. And then she talked about the second circle being your immediate family and your home life, like so like taking care of school schedules and childcare and house responsibilities and your immediate family. And then the third circle being kind of what she called your extended family. So, like, if you are responsible for a parent or if you're worried about someone else in your life, maybe it's a sibling or even a close friend, people that you feel like you have responsibilities to, and about how we never stop and really assess what our mental load is and where it went. I was actually pretty surprised, and so I shared this with Ryan that she talked about how like her marriage almost ended and how she became really passionate about helping people in their marriage was what she calls share the load, and about how it's not a conversation and it goes way beyond chores. And what she talked about was how it leads to bitterness and resentment, usually in both partners. And then I think you should jump in. I'm going to read one of her posts because I started following her, showed Ryan it, and I'm going to read one of her posts that like really resonated because this is organically where our conversation went and the conversation we wanted to have tonight. And it says, I surveyed 535 women on the mental load.
That's not going to work.
I know, hold on. And here's what they said about how it impacted their sexual desire. 75% of the women reported that the mental load drastically reduces their desire for sex. Feels like I'm mothering my husband, not just my children. I'm resentful. I've tried talking about it, but nothing changes. I feel exhausted, overwhelmed, and it never seems to stop. I'm anxious, grumpy, and short tempered. I didn't used to be this way, and it's really killed my libido and desire to connect with my husband. And I was sharing with him before I read this little Instagram post she had that um, I think this is a really big issue where the invisible labor starts to build resentment and bitterness, and it's not something that we're consciously aware of. Um, and it's like I said, like everything down to like little things like, getting your kid set up for college, getting your kid to the school on the first day, making sure that they have childcare. Um, we came from a day today where like my childcare didn't work out. So I had to rearrange and flip my schedule and just like the mental load of even like flipping my schedule and stressing about letting clients down or people that I had appointments with because I didn't have that support that I needed. But Ryan being at work and not accessible for me to like even let him know this till the end of the day. And not that I'm bitter or resentful of that, but like it brought me back to the times that I have become bitter and resentful. And the last thing that I wanted to do when he came home, he wants to come home. He wants me to be present. He wants me to be like, want to connect with him. And that there were so many times that instead of connecting, I rejected. And that's where you kind of like took over from kind of like the male perspective. And I thought this would just be like a really interesting conversation to start to have. And again, a real and raw one because we haven't really talked through this out. But I thought this would be a good topic for us to cover.
Okay, well, there's a lot there. I mean, just talking from our experience, I think from my perspective, where I would feel rejected would be intimately. You would reject me physically. So whether it was like you didn't give me physical affection, or I would seek out physical affection and you would shut it down. And I think all men would agree that when you get shut down sexually or physically from your wife, you feel obviously rejected, and then you're resentful, right? And you get pouty. Um, and then of course, like your wife doesn't want you to be showing up like that, because then you're going to be pouty and resentful, and then you're not going to show up for her like she wants you to show up. So you're going to be less likely to share the load, right? Whether that's like
Mhm.
um connect at the end of the day and listen to the download of the day, help with the kids, help with pack the lunches for the next day, do
Mhm.
bedtime and whatnot. But I think it's way bigger than just those little things. I think what I think about when I hear that is like I do consultations with like all walks of life, people, male and female. And I'm doing deep dives with people because I'm getting like a significant health history. I'm getting to know like all about who they are, what they do, what their blood work looks like. And I think for like, I've been doing a lot of consultations with perimenopausal and menopausal women.
Mhm.
And what I see really commonly with women in their 40s and 50s, especially like moms, is that they're in a place where they've raised children and they've spent all their bandwidth and their energy raising their kids, and then their parents their health is starting to fail,
Mhm.
and they're starting to look after. It always falls on the women usually, where I'm looking after mom, I'm looking after dad, but I'm looking after my son, my daughter. And then if the husband isn't pulling his weight, then it's like, oh, I have this like extra child that I'm looking after. I have to
Mhm.
do his laundry, his dishes, I have to do his meal prep.
Which aligns
Um,
right with what that woman
mhm.
was saying from that study.
Yeah. So here's my thoughts about this. So number one, like I think it's it's the woman's job to communicate what she needs, right? Which I think is a difficulty for a lot of women. They don't like to, I guess, I shouldn't say they don't like to. I think it's difficult to communicate what they want. In a lot of cases, I know that's a struggle for you,
Mhm.
telling me like what you need. Um, but also here's what I see a lot is that especially like the maternal side of women is like they want to be caregivers, right?
Mhm.
Like I think as a man, like nothing is more attractive to me than like my wife that wants to like take care of me, right? Like physically, sexually, take care of our home and our family. Like that's like a nurturing, like attractive thing, I think, to most men,
Yeah.
I would
I
say.
think that's a very female
But
characteristic too.
here's the thing is like women can get lost in that. And
Mhm.
what happens, and I had a discussion with someone just today about this, is like on one side, it's like because it's something that is looked at to be very noble and it's very like selfless
Mhm.
and it is something that is admirable on one hand, but on the other hand, you can also use that as like an excuse to not take care of yourself, right?
Mhm. Yeah.
And in the long run, it actually becomes a detriment to the people in your life when you're
Oh my
not
god, like, my mom's a living example
yeah,
of
when
this.
you're not caring for yourself. Like it's almost a sedation to a degree of like, I'm always going to worry about the kid. Like you're talking about that Venn diagram. It's like,
Mhm.
here's my personal responsibility, but I spend most of my focus and energy on these
Other
other,
people, because it's easier.
well, because it's easier, right? Because it's like, it's more natural for one. And it's also a distraction from doing the work on what you need to do. And I'm
Mhm.
speaking specifically to health, right?
Yeah.
It could be
But that's
mental,
a really good,
it could be
like
mental health, it could be physical health. Um, but I think that is, I see that far more with women than men.
Mhm.
For sure, men do it too. Like men will sedate more with like occupation work, like producing.
Mhm.
But also, most like great dads and husbands will also like focus on, what does my family need? And, they need me to work, they need me to produce and make money. They need me to like drive the kids to their practices and all that.
Mhm.
But I think the whole point of this conversation is making sure that you find the time to and I think you and I have gotten to a really good place where
Mhm.
we respect the things that each of us need to fill our cup, right? Whether it's gym time, whether it's you going to ride horses, whether it's like I need time to prepare for the businesses for the week. We have agreements, right? But that all happens through really strong and clear communication. So
Mhm.
if anything has like really saved our marriage, it's just our ability to have learned to communicate.
Yeah. And I wanna come back to the overwhelm on women and, like, asking for help. So, asking for help for me, especially because I am a perfectionist in many ways, has always been a really hard challenge, and it wasn't until I had Lily that I realized just how badly it was. Like, how poorly I asked for help. And one of the things that I really think also along the lines that you're saying, like, there's themes in the female psyche, right? And that is, nurturing, caregiver. I think that a lot of us were brought up by women that, like, there's a lot of generational stuff of, like, self-sacrifice,
Mhm.
um, which goes to your kinda like your point about the personal thing is like, "Hey, I will make time for everybody else," but, like, when it comes to myself, it's harder.
And there's the phrase that the mom used today was guilty.
Yeah,
So
like
she
the
felt
mom
guilty.
guilt, man, that's a whole other
I
topic
was
for
like,
another
"Oh
day.
my goodness."
Don't let me get down that path because that now get to because I really wanna bring this full circle because I think this is such a important conversation to be having. Like, you wanna make your woman feel seen and heard, like, this is the conversation that, like, will take your marriage to another level, and um, what you made me think about is also when it comes to overwhelming asking for help. Like I said, I don't think that's natural for a lot of women. I don't think there's a lot of people that get to model someone that knows how to do that well. And I might be generalizing, but one of the things I also find out is when you talk about rejection from a male perspective, um, if I had to really, and this is going to be just like I said, just this is very me processing out loud on this, but like also, when I feel overwhelmed and I don't ask for help, it's not because I don't necessarily know how to, it's because sometimes that's how I get rejected as a female. Meaning, I've asked for help before, not just from you, but from other people. And it was biggest thing that comes to my mind. It's easier to do this myself than to ask for help,
Yeah,
right?
that's a
Shitty,
story.
shitty story, right? But a shitty story that probably a lot of people can relate
Mhm.
to. When I want to get better at asking for help, I always think about, like, what is that story that I'm saying in my head? And that's usually number 1 for me. The second thing is I've asked for help before, and it was either, like, rebutted or, like, it was defended or it was denied in the way that I asked it for, such as, like, "Hey, can you take this out?" And it might be like, "Well, I'll take that out, but that really doesn't need to go out. Like, we'll just put it here instead." Like, or that's where I talk about, like, the rebuttal. You used to be really horrible about this. Is like I would ask and you'd be like, "Why do you need to do that? You don't need to do that. Like, that's a waste of your time right now." And I'd be like, or you would say it's a waste of my time right now. And I would say, like, and I'd be like, "Fine, I'll just do it myself because I want it done, but I asked you, but I'm not gonna get an argument about me asking you to do something." And you used to get very defensive about, like, stuff I would ask you to do.
Right, so that was when we were in, like, tit for tat, like, you
Yes.
rejected me, fine, I'm gonna reject you.
Yeah, and that's the like I said,
But
that's the
that's
women's
but
rejection, right?
people get stuck in that for, like,
Yeah,
not just days or weeks,
that's why
months, but years.
when you just brought up about, like, asking for help, this is what came to me mind right away. So, the reason that I'm saying that is, like, I think it would be really good for us to kinda talk about and it's always a work in progress, but, like, again, just like that doctor was saying, she's like, it goes way beyond, like, identifying chores. Um, like, you're the garbage person, you take the garbage out. I'm the dishes person, I do the dishes. Like, whatever like, we're not talking about assignments, we're talking about sharing the load,
Mhm.
and helping each other share a load, not only physically, but emotionally, that allows our significant other to reduce some of that time, and I think about what we talked about, um last week is reducing the load, but one of the things that we covered was about how, like, when you asked me how do I feel appreciated, and I said, like, I love when you pitch in and help me and try to think about how can I make Kendra's day easier. And sometimes it works out. Sometimes you don't need to do, like, just you asking sometimes reduces mental load. Sometimes it actually adds to the mental load because 'cause I'm like, "Oh shit, I gotta think about all the things that I have to think about my whole day to tell him what I actually need help with," right? So, the reason I'm saying that is that, like, I think it's really, really, like, this is such a huge conversation that you could be having in your marriage to improve your communication of, like, "Hey, what are some of the things that, like, really take up your mind share?" Not take up your to-do list. Take up your mind share, like, what are the things that you are heartfelt thinking about that is consuming your energy and your time that is robbing me of your presence and your connection.
Well, I think it takes recognition by both people, that you're on a team, right? So, I think once you frame, I guess, your marriage more like a team rather than you're just operating independently,
Mhm,
doing your
yeah,
own stuff, like, "Here's my to-do list." Like, you have to make sure you take care of yourself, but then you have to make sure that you're also like, "Hey, how do I, how do I contribute to the team today?" Right? So,
mhm,
as far as, like, you're saying, the chores or, like, who's doing what, that comes with communication and making sure that, like, you're actively looking to participate and pitch in, and you're not just checking out.
yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, and it brings me back to, like, I think about this weekend, so we're just coming off a Labor Day weekend. We spent the first weekend at our cabin with, um first it was my mom and then some of my other family, my brother and my aunt, and then, um we had some friends come up and, like, at the end of the weekend, I said to Ryan, I was like, "Listen, that was legit a dream come true weekend. Like, it was one of the best weekends of my life." And you were like, "Really?" And I was like, "Yeah." And I thought about it after I said that, and I know you enjoyed it too. But one of the things is that I thought about is I went up on you went up on Thursday and you picked up our boat, which was like a dream of ours
Mhm.
to have a cabin with a boat on a lake. Um, and then I came up on Friday after I had filled my cup by going I did a clinic with a horseback riding clinic, which was really awesome. And then I filled my cup by picking up my mom, who is 76 years old, and, like, I wanted to see I wanted her to see our dream come true. And you also had that day, that whole Friday, to do some stuff for yourself. Like whether it was like you just caught up on your work or you savored every sip of your coffee in quiet. You took our dog for a
I don't even
swim.
remember. Honestly, it went so quickly.
Yeah, but like I thought about it. I was like, by the time I got there on Friday, you were like ready to receive me and help me.
Mhm.
And you knew how important it was for me to make this moment for my mom. And you knew some of the obstacles we would face with getting my mom, who's basically handicapped, into like a comfortable position. And I could tell that like because you had already back to that Venn diagram she talked about, you had filled your personal responsibilities. Like those were complete. You got your workout in, got all those things that you wanted to do done. I filled my personal responsibilities, right? I got Lily in the car. She took a nap. Got my mom in the car. I filled my cup with the riding in the morning. Um, and then I was in a place where even when I knew a couple things that would normally set me down a path of like, oh my God, that both of us were in like a very even keel place that we could create and curate a memory for not only ourselves, but for my mom. And I thought about it after and I was like, man, that was like, it was just such an amazing example of how like we finally got to this place where we understand what is behind the moment and what type of presence we need to bring to that moment. And then, like I said, we proceeded to have an amazing day with my family. And then we had an amazing day with our first friends that we hosted. And then we had an amazing day at the end of just us, like you, me, and Lily, and Huckleberry, of course. And it just was like such a reminder of like we communicated so well that weekend about what we wanted it to look like.
Mhm.
And we stayed, I feel like I felt so present that weekend. Like there was like very little phone interaction, very little screen time, like just good quality time of like being a family at our lake house. And that would not have happened if we didn't communicate. And then there's a lot of effort to get there. There's a lot of effort in the process. We hosted an amazing family dinner. And then from there, like the packing and unpacking and getting ready for school. And like I said, there was so much invisible labor on both of our parts, right? Like, how many steps did you have to fulfill to even get the boat to the dock? Like, there's a lot of stuff that like we didn't account for. So, just really thinking about how in your marriage could you start to kind of take this Venn diagram? Here's my personal responsibilities. Here's my immediate family responsibilities. And then here's my extended family responsibilities or other things. Maybe you volunteer and that's in that category. And how could you start to make them more cohesive and communicate them more so that you and your partner feel like you are, like you said, on the same team rather than like, one person's benched and
Yeah,
one
but
one person's got a red card.
I mean, that's nice to think about and talk about. But when you're stuck in a cycle of resentment, like how do you break out of that?
Yeah. Um, I don't know. What do you think?
I asked you. So the guy's bitter because he's getting rejected, and the wife feels like she's not being supported, and pulling the load at home. Like, how do you break free of that?
I think it starts with a conversation.
Mhm. I
Like,
think, well, it starts with one person deciding they're going to rise above the emotion
yeah.
and just realizing like, hey, like I don't want to be this way.
Yeah.
I don't want to be here. Like life is too short and we're a team and I want this to be great.
Yeah.
And then you have to decide like, hey, like my wife's rejecting me. I have a few names I want to call her in my head and I'm bitter and whatever, but hey,
What's my where am I at cause?
yeah, exactly. Where am I at cause? It always comes
It
back to
always
that, right?
comes down to
Mhm.
where am I at cause?
And then same with from the woman's perspective, like, hey, where could I like, put my bitterness and resentment aside and like be intimate with my husband, and like, you know, it doesn't have to be always sexual. I'm
Yeah.
saying like, you know, just like, how often do you just like grab me and turn to me and just kiss me for no reason, or touch
Mhm.
me, or just, hey, sit down, come talk to me, and stroke my hair while you talk to me? Like, I'm telling you, like, most guys want that. That's what they want.
Mhm.
They want to
I
be
think I
physically connected
I
to their
think
wife.
it also, but you're saying, like, where do you start? How do you start to, like, overcome the resentment?
Mhm.
Um, what did
'Cause that doesn't happen overnight.
Yeah, yeah. What do you think you did, like, when we were at that place? Because I think we both had resentment. Your Like I said, your source more sexually, me more like, um well, there was a lot of things that happened, obviously, that we've talked a lot about on the podcast, but, like, for me, it was a really, like I said, where I felt unappreciated for all of the work that I put into the marriage that we never, like, was never recognized, right? So I would just build it up, and then by the time you came home, or we would have a moment to connect, it was like I had, just like she was saying at the beginning, I just had nothing left to give. I was legit, like, I love that story, The Giving Tree. I always think about it. I was like, the giving tree ends up as a stump,
That I could
right?
sit on.
That you could sit on. She has nothing left to give, right? But then when she's finally the stump, the old man appreciates it, because what does he need at that point? A place to sit and rest.
Yeah.
So, I think that, like, one of the things for me was starting to really get clear with what was the source of my resentment. And then, like I said, we had to start to work through, which we worked through with professional people, like a therapist, of like, how do we get out of this cycle, like you call it, the tit for tat,
Well, I
where
think
it's horse trading.
both of us needed a third party to help us realize, like,
Mhm.
you're the problem,
Yeah.
right? You had to realize that you were the problem, but then
Mhm.
I also had to realize that I was the problem, right?
Yeah.
And then I think once you start to see the other person rising above, I think their resentment, right? And or they're taking steps towards like taking responsibility for their part in it, like it makes you more likely to want to take your own part in it, like
Mhm.
your
Yeah.
responsibility for yourself. So that's why it can't just be like one person. And that's it does start with one person, I think. Like one person has to just say,
Someone's got to
fuck
take the
this,
lead.
like someone's gonna
Yeah.
take the lead.
Mhm.
And then it's up to the other spouse to say like, wow, I see a change, like I see something changing,
Yeah.
and I like it,
Yeah.
and I'm ready for something different.
Yeah, and I thought about it too, is like, I always listen back to our episode after, when it releases the week after, before we do the next one. And one of the things that really stuck out from last week's episode was, when you talked about how ashamed you felt about how, like, some of the ways you talked to me, and like some of the ways you treated me in the
Mhm.
past. And I was like, in that moment, I was like, man, I was like, just admitting that you're wrong, or you did something wrong, it wasn't intentional. Like, I don't think you intentionally talked to me that way.
No.
Now you have awareness of it. Um, that is so freeing.
Mm,
Like, that is so freeing for someone. So, like, you approaching me and just being like, "Hey," like, instead of being like, "Hey, I feel rejected when you don't wanna have sex with me," like, which that was your approach for a very long time, was like, "Hey, let me tell you directly how I feel." And when you would come with me
well,
with that
you didn't
attitude,
receive that. No.
I could not receive it at all. I did not even I didn't even know how to not only receive it, but respond. And so it would lead to this, like,
Well,
very,
because you immediately wanted to get defensive about it.
yeah, and it would get lead to this very hostile, like,
Yeah.
usually standoff. Like, it wasn't like we wouldn't, like, get in an argument about it. I just would completely shut down.
Right.
And I would run away. That was how that was the coping mechanism that I knew that worked for me at the time. It doesn't work for me anymore. Times I still do it, but I try to really be conscious of it. But if you sat me down and had said to me, listen, I know I've made a lot of mistakes. And I'm not meaning like your actual mistakes, like the infidelity, like those kind of means. I mean the small cuts. It's death by a thousand paper cuts,
Mm.
right? Like it's those things that if you actually took ownership and got to cause for those things and came to me that way, I think I would have totally seen it a very different way. Because basically you're putting yourself, like you said, at cause. And because, one of my other favorite things, like, beyond at causes is, like, for what purpose? For what purpose am I doing this? For what purpose are you sharing this? So when you came to me with, like, "Hey, I feel rejected when you don't wanna have sex with me," like, I'm like, "Okay, for what purpose are you sharing this?" Because it is like, are you sharing it in this way? And I think that you started to be a little bit more open about, like, how you shared and more in a way that I could receive it. So when you're thinking about approaching your spouse and, like, coming from a place of, like, "Hey, I have something that I want to get off my chest, and I want it," like, most people are gonna be like, "Oh my god, okay." Right? But, like, what if you came to them and you're like, "Listen, last weekend when you did this and I responded this way, that wasn't the right way for me to respond, and I'm really sorry that I did that,
Mm.
and I felt really badly about that." And I was like, "So can we talk about this so that we can, like, make progress instead of turn it into an argument?"
Yeah, I mean, isn't that funny that it takes us so much courage to do something so simple like that?
Yeah. Like, and it's like you're like, and just like you said last week, is like one of the ways that you feel respected is that, like, my tone, right? So if I come to you and I'm like, "Hey, Ryan, can you help me with Lily tomorrow?" And what's really helped me is if you could, like, do bedtime tomorrow so I could actually take a shower like I did tonight,
Well, if
right?
you've noticed, so you've talked about the way that if I would have came to you, you would have received that better.
Yeah.
I mean, the same goes for like I would have received a lot of the things that you asked me to do, whereas before you said, "Oh, fuck it, I'll just do it myself," because Ryan's just going to be combative or say no or say I'll do it later.
Yeah.
Okay, so you would spring things on me and just like bark at me and like
Mhm.
um
"Can you help me?"
so yeah, exactly. So it would come out in a way like, here's the story in my head was like, "You're fucking not doing the right thing. You're fucking
Mhm.
around. You're wasting time. You're um you're not doing the right thing. So I'm going to tell you what to do right now."
Mhm.
And it would come off as like I don't know, like my mom telling me to do something like, "You're doing it wrong. You're not
Mhm.
you're you know what I'm saying? Like, it would come off as like, naggy, for example,
Yeah.
okay? So, and of course, like, I'd never received that well, and then, of course, when I didn't receive it well, then you fucking got resentful, and then you would reject me, and then I would reject you, and I like, getting back to this whole cycle of how it got, I mean, the way what we're saying is the way that we broke free of that was ultimately taking responsibility for how we've showed up and realizing like, wow, this is where I've fucked up. And without even having to admit to the other person, like just like changing your approach.
Yeah.
But we're beyond that now, changing approach and coming back to like, hey, I realized in the past how I've been and how I was. And sometimes it slips up a bit and I don't mean to,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah, and, I have no idea why I'm gonna go here, but I'm gonna go here with this. I was just thinking about how, this really left a fucking mark on me, and you're gonna think it's so weird that this left a mark. So we've been watching this show called Hightown, and it's about drugs in the Cape and, like, cops and drug dealers and all this kinda stuff, but we love this kinda stuff. And,
What does that say about
we're
us?
at the 3rd season. And just the last season, like, some big shit, I'm not gonna, like, make it happen, but one of the things I'm gonna tell you kinda that happened was 2 of the 2 main characters. Um, one of the main characters, she was, like, ran a strip club and her as a cover up for her ex-husband who was a drug dealer. And then she ends up falling in love with the cop that's trying to bust her husband.
Spoiler
Okay.
alert here.
No, I'm not. That's what I'm saying. I'm going to be a little bit careful in case someone wants to watch it. And she ends up in a relationship with him. And this guy that is the cop is actually a sex addict on top of this. It's part of the storyline. And what I think was amazing about the series finale we just watched was the 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 girlfriend that actually was married to the drug dealer originally is now in love with this cop, and they actually have a marriage. They're not married, but they're living together. And there's a scene that's at this scenario where she has actually killed someone, and she has kept it secret from the cop, her boyfriend. And the boyfriend has this moment where she finally confesses that she's killed this guy that they're looking for. And he tells the truth about how he basically fucked his partner. And
Where's this going?
well, and I thought about it. And he was like, what happened is they both told the fucking truth.
Yeah.
They let their skeletons out of the closet. And those are two things that would probably break up a marriage, right? I fucking killed someone, and you're a cop. You're looking for the guy I killed, and I'm telling you I killed him. And then I'm your boyfriend, but I'm fucking my partner. And what ended up happening was the minute that they both fucking told the truth, what happened?
Yeah, they ended up having crazy sex in the car.
Yes, and they ended up connecting, and he confessed how much he loved her, and he could overlook the fact that she killed someone, and she could overlook the fact that he fucked his partner, right? And now, again, this is the movies, so it doesn't happen like this in real
I
life.
was gonna say.
But the reason I'm sharing that part of it is because it was such a fucking reminder of the truth sets you free, even if the truth is fucking horrible.
Yeah.
And if both partners are willing to tell the truth, that was the significance of that scene to me. Is that like when you are willing to tell the truth? So, in this capacity that we're talking about, is like when you are telling the truth about, hey, here's when I feel rejected. And here's what I'm being bitter and resentful for. But I want to change that. And you take that approach rather than, I hate when you reject me, like whatever it is, which was the approach that you took at the beginning and had to work on. And the same thing, like, just like you said, that I would say, like, nag you rather than ask for your help in a nice way. I think that, like, you can set the tone for the next level of not only your connection, your intimacy, but also give your marriage room to evolve.
That's good. through a crazy story. Yeah, I agree. I mean, I feel like the theme always comes back to, like, tell the truth, take responsibility. Like, I think it all boils down to those simple truths. It's just, I think that no matter what, like, all problems in your marriage come down to communication.
Yeah.
And when you're not telling the truth, you can't communicate with somebody, clearly you're hiding something.
Yeah.
So whether it's you're hiding your
And it only adds the bitterness and resentment for both parties.
Or you're hiding your true feelings, or you're
Yeah.
hiding, like, not just how you feel, but you're hiding not even something you did, but just, like, leaving out truths that the other person otherwise, like, would have no idea.
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
All right. A good place to wrap it up then.
You wrap it.
All right. Thank you guys for listening. We really appreciate you guys. And
I hope you got something out of it.
I hope you get something out of this crazy conversation. But please share, like, subscribe, and we will see you guys next week.
And open up this conversation with your spouse.
Yes, get it done.